anti-Semitism. When we think of the Second World War, the first image that often comes to mind is Adolf Hitler in Munich, delivering hate-filled speeches before thousands of followers. Yet Germany was not the only country where hatred toward Jews flourished. As the Führer rose in Europe, political movements in other parts of the world emerged that shared and promoted the very same ideology. In the United States, a uniformed organization marched under the swastika and swore loyalty to the Führer. In the United Kingdom, an aristocrat-turned political strongman called for a nation purified of foreign influences. And in France, one of its most celebrated war heroes embraced collaboration with the Nazis, ruling with an iron fist from Vichy. These movements were symptoms of a deeper phenomenon. Anti-Semitism was a global poison that found fertile ground in unexpected places, proving that hatred recognizes no borders. German-American Bund flags with swastikas snapping in the wind. Hundreds of people dressed as if they belonged to a National Socialist militia. It would be logical to assume these images were taken in Germany during Adolf Hitler's rule. But this is neither Munich nor Hamburg. It happened in Andover Township, New Jersey, in the middle of the United States. It is a record of one of the gatherings organized by the German-American Bund, a front that promoted National Socialist values from American soil. How could such a movement take root in one of the Allied nations? In May 1933, Rudolf Hess authorized Heinz Spanknobel, a German immigrant in the United States and a member of the Nazi Party, to found an American branch of National Socialism. Shortly afterward, with help from the German consul in New York, Spanknobel created the organization Friends of New Germany. That first attempt to carry the Reich's ideals across the Atlantic was not very successful, but it paved the way for the largest fascist expression to arise in the United States. In 1936, the German immigrant Fritz Julius Kuhn founded the German-American Bund, a political grouping that advocated a new golden age for the German Empire. With an anti-Semitic message that exalted the value of the white man and the traditional family, Kuhn quickly drew the attention of many immigrants and descendants of Germans seeking a way to participate in the political turbulence of their homeland. News of a bold leader with powerful oratory crossed the ocean, and through Kuhn's promotional efforts, Hitler became a revered figure within the Federation.
While the United States laughed and jeered, a man named Fritz Kuhn set about organizing a monster called the German-American Bund. The early 1930s found him and his followers assembling a small group of German Americans into a membership of swaggering, arrogant goose-steppers who had dedicated themselves to spreading the new message of a reborn Germany. Only a few years were to elapse before the organization was to be exposed as an agent of a foreign enemy power.
Kuhn was an ideal spokesperson for the Reich's aims. He was an immigrant who had fought in the First World War and had direct contact with the German consul in New York. Naturally, anti-Semitism was central to his speeches. He told his followers that the social and economic problems they faced were part of a Jewish plan to undermine Western governments. That doctrine took deep root among thousands desperate for answers and hungry for a cause. A meticulous student of the Führer's speeches, Kuhn sought to replicate the organization, aesthetics, and oratory of National Socialism's mass events.
In outdoor camps throughout various sections of the country, Kuhn's Bund set about training their version of Hitler's stormtroopers. Like the Viennese house painters' parent organization in Germany, Kuhn's Bundists preached the party line of hatred and prejudice. They waved the banner of anti-Semitism and shrieked out the praises of the Aryan supermen.
Between 1936 and 1941, the German-American Federation gathered some 25,000 members, many of whom received military and ideological training in rural compounds. The peak of Kuhn's political career came in 1939, when he organized a National Socialist rally at Madison Square Garden, an event that made clear that fascism had a foothold even in the heart of the United States. Roughly 20,000 people attended and listened closely to a virulently racist and anti-Semitic speech by Fritz Kuhn. While Hitler planned territorial expansion over Poland and other nations, setting off the Second World War, inside Madison Square Garden, thousands denounced the Jews.
Soon the little band of fanatics shed their swaddling clothes and became an organization of considerable power and wide membership. Rally after rally in New York City's Madison Square Garden found the followers of the U.S. Nazi Party line whipping themselves into a frenzy of hate and power lust. And ever present was Fritz Kuhn's specially trained Kuhn squad. They were always on hand to see that any anti-Bund demonstrators were dealt with promptly and efficiently. And such disturbances came with increasing frequency. The films you're watching now illustrate the thoroughness of the American stormtroopers. An anti-Nazi Jewish plumber tried to attack the Bund leader during one of his venomous speeches in 1938. The would-be assailant was fortunate to escape with his life.
But that 1939 rally also marked the beginning of the end. Kuhn and his men alarmed the authorities, and investigations followed quickly. Embezzlement and tax irregularities soon came to light. On December 5th, 1939, Kuhn was sentenced to between 2.5 and 5 years in prison. Even so, Bund loyalists continued to revere him.
The collapse of the Bund came quickly on the heels of the imprisonment of its leader Kuhn for the misappropriation of the organization's funds. His successor, Wilhelm Kunze, and 8 top aides were jailed a year later for violating New Jersey's race hatred law. They were sentenced to 1-year terms in prison, but the law was later held to be unconstitutional.
As the Second World War progressed, the Federation lost relevance, and with the United States' entry into the conflict, the front ceased its activities for good.
After Pearl Harbor, the Bund went underground, disbanding as far as public appearances were concerned. Its threat to the welfare of the United States had been destroyed. Its death was mourned by few and applauded by most. An organization that had flourished under the guise of constitutional free speech had died at the hands of the very democracy it had publicly scorned.
After serving his sentence, Kuhn was deported to Germany, where he faced denazification laws. He spent his remaining years working in obscurity as a chemical engineer. With its leaders imprisoned and its rallies discredited, the German-American Federation went down in history as one of the great embarrassments of American society. Oswald Mosley. Nazism's advance did not play out only in the streets of the United States. A malignant seed also germinated in England. In October 1936, 3,000 men in black shirts marched through London's East End, home to one of the country's largest Jewish communities. The demonstrators not only carried anti-Semitic placards, they also demanded a superior Great Britain. Their leader, Oswald Mosley, was an aristocrat who had become the principal mouthpiece of fascism in the British Isles, drawing inspiration from Benito Mussolini, Francisco Franco, and Adolf Hitler. His incendiary speeches made that clear.
Sooner or later, in the lives of great nations, comes the moment of decision, comes the moment of destiny. And this nation again and again in the great hours of its fate has swept aside convention, has swept aside the little men of talk and of delay, and have decided to follow men and movements who say we go forward to action.
Mosley belonged to a particular generation. He fought in the First World War as a young man of barely 18. Later, he became one of the youngest members of the British Parliament. First as a Conservative, then as an Independent, and finally as a member of the Labour Party. Politics left him deeply disillusioned and convinced that the system served a tiny circle of millionaires and foreign capitalists. So Mosley went further. He claimed that Britain's major crises and the economic problems afflicting the world were caused by the Jews, whom he said controlled key sectors of industry. The rise of fascism in Italy and Germany inspired Mosley to take his ambitions to the next level. In 1930, he began recruiting like-minded people. those dissatisfied with the British government and, above all, with what they saw as Jewish interference in political life. With each meeting, Mosley became a bolder, more persuasive orator. He studied history's great leaders, even taking notes on their gestures and charisma to apply to his own speeches. Finally, in 1932, he founded the British Union of Fascists, known as the BUF.
That with the dawn of a new decade, I will be setting a new course, setting up a new political movement here, in the very heart of England. It will offer a new conception of politics in which the great character of the British, our true character, will be reborn.
The BUF blended extreme nationalism, anti-communism, and anti-Semitism in equal measure. Its members wore black shirts and staged public events that often ended in violence, although, according to Mosley, the group repudiated force and used it only when attacked. To prevent clashes, the BUF created an internal militia, men trained to protect the leader and keep order at meetings. Throughout the 1930s, the party was frequently involved in violent confrontations, particularly with communist and Jewish groups in London. At the height of his influence, Mosley attracted up to 50,000 sympathizers and even received indirect funding from the Italian fascist regime. In response to the growth of his rallies and his ties to foreign enemies, the British government passed a law in January 1937 banning paramilitary political movements and their public displays. After the war began in 1939, Mosley led a campaign for a negotiated peace with Nazi Germany. At first, he found some support, but after the invasion of Norway, he was detained and imprisoned by British authorities, accused of collaboration. Many years later, when questioned about his wartime stance, he insisted the true culprits were not the Nazis, but the Jews.
Sir Oswald, do you now, looking back with the hindsight and knowledge of history, blame the Jews or Hitler for the Second World War?
I blame both. I blame both in that Hitler was impatient. He wanted to drive east, unite his own people, and when we signed the guarantee with Poland...
Rather like blaming the victim of a rapist for the rape, isn't it?
Well, no, wait a minute. Let us look at it clearly. Well, Hitler was driving east to unite his own people. We gave a guarantee to Poland, which we could only implement by a world war. In fact, we couldn't save Poland, we didn't. It's like signing a bouncing check. Well, now, the agitation to make us do those ridiculous things like guaranteeing Poland and the other side of Europe was largely due to the influence of some Jews.
On May 23, 1940, Mosley and most active fascists in the United Kingdom were arrested under Defense Regulation 18B against external enemies, and shortly afterward, the BUF was outlawed. Accused of treason, he spent nearly 3 years under house arrest. After the war, he attempted repeatedly to revive his political career, without success. Seeking to rehabilitate his image, he tried to distance himself from Adolf Hitler's policies, claiming he wanted only a new golden age for England. He died in 1980 on the outskirts of Paris. To this day, his figure is still upheld by segments of the most extreme nationalism. Philippe Pétain. France was one of the Allied countries hardest hit during the Second World War. As a European power, it became one of the Third Reich's first major targets. After 6 weeks of fierce fighting between May and June 1940, the Führer's men took control of France. The man tasked with maintaining the Republic during that turbulent period was Philippe Pétain, a hero of the First World War who, for many French citizens, symbolized bravery and leadership. He was one of the nation's most respected men, at least until 1940. At nearly 85 years of age, he found himself mediating between Munich and Paris. Soon, the old hero became a puppet of the Reich, preaching non-intervention and practicing quiet collaboration with Germany.
Aucun Français ne doit se mêler à ce conflit. autrement que ce serait lamentable pour vous et pour la France. Acceptez les épreuves qu'on nous envoie. Ces épreuves sont terribles, mais elles seront d'autant moins terribles que vous n'y prendrez pas part. Ayez confiance dans l'avenir de la France. Au revoir.
Under German occupation, the Vichy regime emerged, a puppet government that answered directly to the Third Reich. In every sense, it was a collaborationist state that aided the persecution of Jews and other groups targeted by Hitler. Within that machinery of death, Pétain stood by as a compliant partner, unable or unwilling to oppose infamous German policies. Whether because of age or lack of will, he did not resist the invaders' demands. Control was so complete that France's historic motto, liberty, equality, fraternity, was replaced with work, family, fatherland, aligning with international fascism's precepts, which masked a profound hatred toward ethnic groups it deemed impure. Under Pétain, France deported approximately 75,000 Jews, many of whom were murdered in extermination camps. The hero of the First World War became a traitor who helped pave the way for the massacre of his own people. Pétain tried to justify himself by claiming he did everything possible to lessen the damage to France. That defense collapses when faced with the record of his regime's persecution of the French resistance, which fought to expel the Germans. Vichy collaborated actively with the Nazi Holocaust, and at its head stood Pétain. When the conflict ended, the one-time military hero was put on trial for his actions during the occupation.
Amid long arguments and recriminations, the proceedings of the Pétain trial have drawn out into weeks, with little appearance of interest by the Marshal himself. A new note was struck by the appearance of the best hated figure in France, Pierre Laval. Haggard and worn from his last fateful journey from Spain, Laval was nevertheless full of fight as he addressed the court. Oily phrases dropped from the lips of the arch-quisling, at present a witness but soon to take his place in the dock.
Pétain was sentenced to death, but the penalty was commuted to life imprisonment due to his advanced age and, in part, his service record in the First World War. He died in 1951, confined without honors, repudiated by his people.
Pétain's death at the great age of 95 on the Île d'Yeu has mercifully ended a long period of illness and decline during his imprisonment. His wife had been living on another part of the island and was one of the few people permitted to visit him in the fortress. Recently, however, on account of his illness, he had been taken from the closely guarded prison to a villa on the island, and it was there that he died.
Nazism was not confined to German soil. That monstrosity found fertile ground in unthinkable corners of the Western world. Although we remember with horror the war crimes of the Third Reich, the truth is that this ideology of hatred and extermination was also championed by citizens of Allied nations. These movements grew from the shadows and gained strength in plain sight, spreading anti-Semitic and racist messages. They amassed thousands of sympathizers, funding, and political influence, a lasting disgrace for Allied governments. After the war, many sought to bury that past, trying to hide the fascism that had taken root within their own societies, but denying history, risks repeating it. When societies fall silent, the speeches of hatred and extermination find their voice again. Thus, we come to the end. If you liked this video, we'll be waiting for you in our next installment of War Documents.